we always want to contextualize what we're doing with the overarching theme of the series, which is female psychology. But in this particular program, we continue looking at the dynamic of the masculine proclivities, you know, again, emphasizing that there's a masculine proclivity in women and a feminine proclivity in men. I mean, you'd think that this would be known, and yet so many teachers confuse terms like male and female, masculine and feminine. But in this one, we'll really dive deeper into the whole concept of the animus and how that pertains. So again, a Jungian perspective, but a very, very needed one. How I honed in on it was, remember previously that in the last program, I just mentioned that in the lives of most women historically, certain archetypes were not allowed expression. Yeah, men had issues, with their femininity, and and then, and again, it's like the Mitwelt. It's again the societies of previous times. Mitwelt is going to stand accused in these programs, of being very toxic, and so certainly the psyche of a woman has been affected by those prohibitions, where she cannot express. In the last program, we saw how many archetypes there are and how many were masculine. Yeah, well, what happens if those archetypes of the psyche, these are the very constituents of the psyche, are not allowed expression? Then you're going to inherit a pathological snowballs over time. Today, we would recognize that if somebody said, well, men aren't, how many websites and essays and articles are, men don't express their feminine side ad infinitum, right? Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that chorus. Where have we ever heard about women not expressing their masculine side correctly? Is it because people have this delusion that women are expressing their masculine? We have to look into what that is. But again, just back to the simple fact, it means that historically, because of the situation where women have to repress their masculine aspects, then that means that the psyche of women isn't healthy and isn't balanced. Well, my God, what does that lead us to understand, right? And again, the illusion that if we move up to present time, well, they're running around in the corporate world, and it appears that women are very much ingratiated now since the time of feminism. But see, and people have followed that trend. But is it actually true? Is it as it appears? Are women expressing their masculine? We put a question mark after that. And immediately as you do so, you're up to the penthouse level. You're now looking down at society in a way that very few people have ever, because they've bought this illusion. But in my work, you see, I'm pointing out the fallacy of that whole thing, even questioning whether there's any archetypal work going on. There may be some dumb show version. I'll admit to that, but that's certainly not healthy. And we've been seeing in these series why. How could anyone say that, and how could anybody substantiate that? If you're going to say that it's all a chimera, But my point is that, look, with the passage of time, even since the time of Jung, or the time after the Second World War or whatever, with that simple passage of time, between the time when women were expressing or were not expressing to the time when they're meant to be expressing, has the psyche itself, stayed as it was in that time? I don't think it is. And also, has man's psychological insight since the time of Freud and Jung increased? We've asked all these questions, and the answers are not particularly in the positive. If you go to the next slide. And then I honed in to this concept of the dragon fight and the consequent matrophobia, mother hate, making that a central premise. Because that psychological insight I just mentioned, right, and that introspective quality, how the hell is that even going to be possible when a child has gone through 7 years? Is actually a lot more, but just the concrete, well-known Electra complex, Oedipus complex. If somebody has had their entire identity and will crushed at that time, I mean, are they really going to want to be introspective? No. But the main point psychologically was that the girl then, who's drenched in matrophobia, must conceal that from herself, from her mother, and from the world. Blaming men becoming the simplest means of which to do. Since there's nothing but male blame all through the world, we can make a case. Because it's not just a small demographic. This has become the universal meme. It's very easy to do because it's just blame, blame, blame. Oh, but it's also easy to do because the girl's own inner masculine is already deformed and returns in demonic form. Tell me how you're going to get out of that one.